How was your wife when you left her? I'm not sure I understand. Are you asking me about her mood, her character? I was referring to her physical state, and I suggest you say so. Your function is to clarify, not obscure. Mr. Jameson, with all due respect, I would appreciate a less patronizing attitude. And I would appreciate, with all due respect, questions of a more pertinent nature. I will certainly try to do better, sir. As
Evening, wherever you're joining us from. This is Smoking Damages from Reviews Room, and we're back, fellow victims, on the CRWS, and we're interviewing 0526, as far as I know, the founder of this channel. So anyway, last year I was minding my own business on Instagram, posting a few things, trying to use my time and energy to counter racism, white supremacy as best as I could. And I was contacted by Mr. 0526, and asked to take part in this book club, and I guess the rest is now. So I've been on this platform a few times, and I thought it would be beneficial, constructive, and informative if we would ask if he would answer some questions regarding racism, white supremacy. I've certainly found him to be a lot less confused than a lot of fellow victims that I've had communication with. So 0526, how are you today? And give us a little background as to what motivated you to start this channel.
Greetings, Smoky Damages, and the rest of the folks on the panel. I am still learning, and I am maintaining, and I was motivated to create the channel because I came across the book, The Delectable Negro, because I was directed to that channel by my cellmate. And I listened to like probably 10 minutes or so of the Cow's Delectable Negro book study. And I was like, wait a minute. If white people were really doing this stuff, were like eating us, I want to find out for myself. And I ordered the book, The Delectable Negro, started reading it, and I thought, hey, this is information that people I know should know. So I decided to invite folks to the book club that is now known as CRWS.
Okay, so then you just decided to just literally just start a channel on social media just like that? How did that come about? How did that sort of come about?
Yeah, I thought it would be quite easy because I already had like a bunch of at that point in time I was calling them my friends. I thought I had a bunch of friends, so I was like, yeah, it should be easy, just start up a channel where we just read and talk about books, spread the information, and it wasn't until I got my hands on the ISIS papers where the book club became more dedicated to solving the race problem. At first, I was just trying to get Black people to just learn a little bit about history and what was done to us by white people. And now it's dedicated to solving the race problem, spreading information regarding the race problem.
Okay, did you have an idea about Neely Fuller Jr.'s code book at that time when you first started the channel?
I think I have when I started it, I hadn't read any of the information. I probably had heard the name and read it in the ISIS papers a bunch. No, but I was beginning to learn about Neely Fuller because he's writing that up there with Dr. Francis Cress Wilson. And that was the second book we read for the book club, was the ISIS papers.
Okay, so what kind of impact did that have when you got a hold of that book and you started reading like what Neely Fuller Jr. had to say about the code? Because certainly for me, when I heard him on the different platforms talking about the code, but then reading the code again was quite different for me. I mean, what kind of impact did it have for you when you actually started reading about this stuff in black and white, as it were?
Oh, it was a thrill. In regards to reading the ISIS paper, it was highly motivational, and it allowed me to understand my cosmic responsibility and my cosmic duty to assist in solving a race problem. And as for the code, I remember when I ordered it, I was simply excited, just waiting for it. I'm checking the mail and being highly disappointed that it took quite a while to get to my dwelling. But when I got it, I would read it, and it was definitely a treat and a thrill to read the information, because a lot of it made sense. And I would consider Neely Fuller a sort of a philosopher of sorts, because that's what the information reads like to me: philosophy, a sort of philosophy I've always sought, but due to living in existing in the system, it's been very hard to acquire.
So really, when you started reading that code, you thought it kind of it sort of came to you that you had more of a sort of like a cosmic duty to do something about the race problem. Like, how do you mean? Like, what do you? Could you expand on that a bit?
Yeah, I thought, wow, the bare minimum at least I could do is think about it, speak against it, speak about it, and maybe, you know, act against it with my thought and speech, and maybe some more actions if some come to mind, or if I'm able to codify some more actions. But yeah, reading the ISIS papers, and just learning about racism and white supremacy essentially is what all it took for me to want to get serious about solving the problem, learning about the problem. Because
Okay.
yeah, prior to the ISIS papers and the Delectable Negro and the code book, I was very confused. Very.
Same here. I completely agree. I was a lot, and I hear that a lot from a lot of different white non-white people that I speak to about this subject. And talking about racism, since we're talking about it, what's your definition of racism, and what do you mean when you say racism?
I like Gus's definition, but I change a couple of the words.
Just for clarification, that's Gus T. Renegade on context of white supremacy, yeah?
Yeah, that's Gus T. Renegade from the Cows, context of white supremacy. But definition,
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, my definition is a system, a global system of people who classify themselves as white, who are dedicated to mistreating, dominating, and subjugating everyone in a known universe who they classify as non-white. And yeah, that's the definition.
So do you think all white people are dedicated to practicing racism?
No, I don't think all white people are. I think enough of them are for the system to be in place 2022.
How do you reckon non-white people can determine the difference between the ones that are dedicated and the ones that aren't?
That is an excellent question. Pay attention to the words that they use. But there's really no way that I can tell another non-white person that this white person is definitely a racist. So the best answer I could give is that I can't, and I would urge all non-white people to suspect all white people who are able to practice racism to be a suspected racist. All white people in general, I would say, actually should be regarded as suspected racists.
Fully agree, and we're probably going to get to a few of these words a little later as well. And what do what do you mean when you say being on code against racism?
Oh, so when I say codification, anything like that, it means having some sort of thought, speech, and action that is dedicated to countering racism by discussing it correctly or helping people to do whatever people need help with. So that's what I am saying when I say code. The code should be geared to producing justice, guaranteeing no one is allowed to be mistreated, but those who need help receive constructive help.
And in and in terms of how we see other white people, like in us as victims of racism and white supremacy, I was just thinking the other day when someone like, say, Peggy McIntosh, for example, the Peggy McIntosh, for in case anyone's listening, is responsible for the whole, white privilege term. She did a paper on white privilege, the term white privilege, and she made it quite popular. It's become popular. When someone like Peggy McIntosh admits that she is a racist, why do you think that many non-white people have a problem referring to her as a racist?
I think we've been trained, conditioned, victimized to a degree of being super, super fearful to discuss racism, to even use that R word, that racism word, that racist word. So I think that's where that comes from. We have been trained as a collective of non-white people, specifically Black people, to get really uncomfortable, fearful, and annoyed when we have to look at the truth, confront the truth, or discuss the truth, I suspect.
Yeah, I agree, actually. I've heard you talk a lot about confusion in terms of how in terms of how racism is practiced, right? Could you give an example or a few examples of how you've observed, how can I call it, weaponized confusion on the part of racist man and racist woman towards non-white people, how they get us confused about what racism is and how it works?
So many ways. A recent way I've seen is them having information, or for example, you may have been there, but there was a white man in one of our discussions, and he said that he was going to tell it to us straight about what white people, all the racist stuff white people are saying and doing. But then when we proceeded to ask him, okay, tell us, he says, oh, he tells us to leave it to our imagination. So they will pretend like they're gonna share constructive information with us, but it won't be constructive information. It would be what is meant to be perceived as constructive, but it's just deceit and misinformation, false information. Another thing I'm seeing ramped up a lot is white people taking non-white people to the bedroom. I'm seeing that ramped up in all areas of people activity, especially in entertainment. We're now seeing superheroes we're now seeing white superheroes rape non-white people. Basically, we saw that with Spider-Man. We're seeing that with Batman, it looks like, coming up this year. And we saw it with Venom, Let There Be Carnage. So they're really trying to put into the non-white person's brain computer that, hey, if you want, yeah, you too can get with a powerful white person. Yeah, it's your turn now. So go out and seek a white person to be raped by and to be super, super victimized by, and that will lead to confusion, I suspect.
When you talk about sexual contact between white and non-white people, you refer to it as rape. What do you mean by that? Why do you call it rape?
Because non-white people currently 2022, we exist as a powerless group of people, racist man and racist woman. They have determined that we shall be treated like children and that we are their children. They dictate where we live, how much, how we can make an existence, and what we can do or what our existence. If you really pay attention to how things are set up, white people, aka racist man and racist woman, determine all of that. So we are their children and they are the adults. So with that being said, a adult and a child cannot have sex. Whenever that happens, that's rape. So I see that's the same for reality for white people and non-white people. We non-white people, according to racist man and racist woman, we are their children. They treat us like children. Why are they having sex with their children? And just very incorrect. And I don't think it should be happening. Nor do I think it has solved any problems.
Do you think at one stage of your life that you were conditioned to view people classified as white as more attractive than Black people, for example? And were you in turn raped by any white females?
I'm certain I was conditioned to see white people as attractive, because if you look at my track record of the white people I've been raped by, and yes, I have been raped by white women, many of them. If you look at the white women I have been raped by, they're not attractive. They're quite grotesque looking, but the degree of confusion that I was suffering from and just the state of survival I was in, it all makes sense. It all makes sense. Actually, I was laughing because Helen put in a chat that picture of that of a white lady and the black male.
I do remember that. We might have to post that just so people can understand exactly what we're talking about.
And the black male is like, you're beautiful. I'm like, oh, this is bring me back memories, because my first white girlfriend that I had when I was homeless and 17 in high school, she looked quite similar to that picture. Sadly, tragically, I have to admit, she looks very similar to this picture. I'm gonna put it on the screen for folks really quickly. All right, that's a picture. There you go. Context. So yeah, I have been
in terms
of
in terms of that, like being conditioned to view white people as more attractive than we are. Have you seen that type? Do you get a sense that white people understand that that dimension of racism, white supremacy, and that it's purposeful, and that they understand that they've been portrayed in the minds of non-white people as more attractive? I mean, for example, do you think that overweight white female in that photo probably understands that on some level she's still viewed as more attractive than other non-white females?
I really I don't know, because just I suspect we're dealing with an insanity that I can't comprehend. So I don't know if white people are just that egotistical and egomaniacal that they, even when they look like the picture what we just put on the screen, even when they look like that, I don't know if they're still feeling like they're beautiful, you know, that they're so attractive, even when they look like that. I don't know if that white psycho. It's like how I can't pronounce that word sometimes, but I don't know if the white
like the psyche or
Yeah, I don't know if the white psychopathology. Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I don't know if the white psychopathology is that they're super egotistical and they can look really, really ugly and still feel like they look really beautiful, or that they know that, hey, I'm white, even if I'm ugly, this non-white person has been convinced to and conditioned to see me as attractive. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, that definitely is a puzzler. I mean, I've seen some white females that would be, I don't know, considered by, I'd say definitely majority white people to be looked upon as quite unattractive. And then I've seen them sort of go around black males, if you're talking about white females, and yeah, with complete confidence, thinking that yeah, you know, even though I'm quite unattractive around other white people, I can quite easily pick up one of these you know, these black people who have been conditioned to find me attractive. As have you observed anything like that with white people, with white females?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say yeah. And I think there's even like terminology for those kind of white girls. I think they're called grays. It's like the white girls who are kind of who can't find a white man, so they come down and they pick a non-white person, probably a black person, to capture and rape while pretending it's a equal relationship.
Okay, to get into some intricacies in terms of confusion, words that white people use to confuse us as well, just to confuse us about exactly what racism, white supremacy is. Let me just get your thoughts on a few things. Is all racism practiced by white people? As in, if all white people were to disappear by next week, say, would we still have domination and mistreatment based on color?
Oh wow, what a question. No, I don't think we would have racism and white supremacy if all white people disappeared. We would probably have a lot of mistreating still occurring, but it wouldn't be racism and white supremacy.
Okay, and what's another bit that they confuse us with? We have like different types of terminologies for different types of oppression, and we view different types of oppression as the same. And I was wondering, I was going to get your take on this. Is there a difference between, say, racism and anti-Semitism? If so, could you explain the difference and how this is a bit confusing for some non-white people?
Oh wow. Yeah, there definitely is a difference. Racism, white supremacy is a system, is a global system that affects people in all areas of people activity, whereas this anti-Semitism, that's probably right next to a person being so-called prejudiced and discriminatory. That's where I put those at. It probably involves some mistreatment in the form of verbal attacks, but as far as being dominated to the degree where you are forced to live in squalor and you are murdered and you are not generally treated with dignity by anyone, including people who look like you. No, anti-Semitism does not equate that, whereas racism and white supremacy equates that and much more.
Excellent answer. A lot of it dealing with confusion again. A lot of non-white people have been conditioned to use terms like fair, when we mean unjust or incorrect and things like that, and illumination when we mean clarity, for example. Why do you do you see problems with the use of words like fair?
Oh, because it helps to support racism, white supremacy. But there, it's so common, tragically, and until a person um understands, like gets into their brain computer the concept of codification of thought and language, Nothing's gonna change, but it's really damaging to for most people to use words like fair and dark out of context and in a context that helps to support white supremacy.
Why would the term fair specifically, like what is it about the word fair that helps to support the system of racism, white supremacy?
Because fair has been associated with white skin, who's the fairest of them all. It's been associated with white skin, and at the same time it has also been said to mean equal or balanced. So at the surface level, yeah, a person may be thinking that they mean equal or balanced when they're saying fair, but their mind, their brain computer may be getting other messages where they're eventually seeing fairness as whiteness, as being white, as a person can only be fair, a person can only be balanced or equal if they're white. So I think that's where the damage comes in on levels that I'm probably not able to comprehend, but I have some idea on.
Totally agree. Really, really confusing words that they get us to use. And even some of the words that we use, they also try to commandeer those words as well. And one of those I wanted to get to with you is the term woke. Have you ever used this term woke? Have you heard other people using the term woke? And what does that word mean to you, or that phrase mean to you? And how do you think it's been commandeered in some sort of way by white supremacists?
No, I can't say I've ever used the term woke to call myself or as a complimentary term. I actually don't like the term at all. Because
do you understand what it kind of means when other people use it, or like what do you have an idea of what it means?
Yeah, I think it used to mean like a person who was a little bit more aware of what was happening on planet Earth, or a person who has who's somewhat aware of what's happening on planet Earth, whether they understood it as racism, white supremacy, or something else. They understood that something wasn't quite right, wasn't quite correct about what's going on planet Earth. Now, I suspect it means the same thing, but that woke person is a bit of a nuisance. Like, oh, this person's a woke. He's trying to be woke. He's trying to be smart. He's trying to be, aware.
Do you suspect that maybe white supremacists have probably commandeered the word to use it for their own ends?
Oh yeah, of course. Yep. I was gonna say yep, co-opted, hijacked the word. So yeah, it's another term that we should not use, because a person is only a person can be awoken, you can be awoken from sleep, but and we're woke when we're not sleeping, but we should not equate being woke with consciousness or being aware or any of that, because it's do you know about white supremacy or not? If we're talking about what we know about, let's say what we're talking about, what we know about, because saying woke or never woke or conscious is not, it's not it anymore.
Yep, using correct terms. I see a lot of us fall into traps of using incorrect terms, and we're trying to talk about this problem. And one of these terms as well is the term Karen, right? It's become quite ubiquitous, right, in what we understand in America, to be America and England, stuff, many English-speaking parts of the world. This kind of term Karen has just gone around the globe now, right? And
yeah,
funnily enough, I don't hear non-white people referring to Amber Geiger, Judge Odenay Brown, Sandra Bullock, etc., right, as Karens, right? But this term meaning Karen, what instead of actually, without me saying that, what does the term Karen mean to you, and do you find it a constructive word to use or a non-constructive word?
Karen to me is a euphemism that people use to describe a suspected racist or a white person, and I don't think it's a constructive term because, as I said, it's a euphemism that we should not use any euphemisms when discussing racism and white supremacy or its racist participants.
So if a white female, for example, is practicing racism, you recommend that we just define her as a racist suspect or a white female who's practicing racism?
Precisely. Yep.
Okay, in terms of confusion again, right? There are many, I don't know, many suspected white supremacists or some more confused non-white people when we're apparently supposedly wanting to have a discussion about racism, white supremacy. They also sort of pivot halfway through the discussion and talk about LGBTQ oppression, etc. Right? Do you see this as non-constructive? If so, why? Is all oppression the same?
Yeah, I see it as very I see it as actually destructive because it destroys a person's intent of wanting to focus on the race problem, because that tactic of lumping and pretending like the gay problem or people who are gay being mistreated is equivalent to non-white people who are black being mistreated. And it's not the case at all. It's not the case at all. I cannot pinpoint a time and place where gay people were yeah, I don't even go into it, but yeah, I think that answers the question.
I think you definitely did, and the term, just as far as another confusing term, right? The term CRT, critical race theory, seems to be a term that we're all hearing again and again, and some of the ways that what's some of the ways that you've heard that term being used, and do you advise other non-white people to use this term CRT, and what does CRT mean to you, like when you've heard it used?
Oh yeah, CRT is another I want to call it a psyop because it's being used in so many different ways. It's being used to spread fear. It's being used to spread anger. It's being used to get white people frustrated and some of them worried that this scary CRT is coming to their classrooms. And it's a word that white people are wanting, I suspect, are wanting black people to use because it's not a constructive term. Critical race theory. Yeah, we don't have to theorize racism. It's here. It's real. Racism, white supremacy is absolutely real, and that acronym CRT is it's very similar to the term prejudice and what's the other one? Oh, discrimination. Because now a person is going to be able to say, I don't want to talk about CRT, and that's now saying I don't want to talk about racism. Or yeah.
Yeah, in terms of confusing words and terms, unconscious bias. I've heard a lot of non-white people being very, very confused about this term, unconscious bias, like racism is practiced unconsciously or subconsciously. What do you think about this term, unconscious bias? And do you think a lot of racism is practiced unconsciously?
No, I don't think any racism is practiced with unconsciously or with some sort of unconscious bias. Tragically enough, I had a so-called Mexican professor at my university, and this was in a psychology class, and he was so-called teaching us about those biases, unconscious biases. And then I said, oh, like the model minorities, like Asians are model minority. Would that be an unconscious bias? And he's like, yeah, exactly. But in hindsight, that way.
He said what? He said what? Sorry, about the Asian. Was that about unconscious? Say it again.
I said, so what? I asked him, so what? The model minorities, would Asians being a model minority, would that be an unconscious bias? And he said, yeah. But if you wanted to, in hindsight and practicing logic, that's actually a racist stereotype. That's actually racism, racist logic, actually. The model minority, Asians being the best non-white person. That's not an unconscious bias. That's racism.
Okay, so do you think all white people that practice racism do so in a conscious way? They definitely all know what they're doing when they practice it.
Oh yeah, I think it's like on automatic. Some things they do that are racist, they don't have to think about doing it. And there are some things that they do that they intentionally think about doing that are racist. And then, but that doesn't mean that they sometimes don't attempt to be nicer to some victims, or they don't attempt to help some victims of racism.
So even if a white person is attempting to help you, or even does help you and deliver some constructive information for you, you would recommend that non-white people still view that white person as a racist suspect?
Certainly, well, 100%. Even if that white person just gave you a heart transplant, still a suspected racist until the race problem is solved.
Okay, so you just brought up like a while ago the terms prejudice and discrimination, right? And you said you recommend that non-white people not use these terms. What are the why do you see the terms prejudice and discrimination as not constructive, and why do you recommend that non-white people not use those terms when talking about racism, white supremacy?
Because there's easy way out terms. It's an easy way out to not talk about racism, white supremacy. They say being prejudiced is judging someone before you get to know them. Okay, and they say discrimination is not liking someone, or not liking a certain group. It's confusion, because that's not what discrimination is. And I think everyone probably practices prejudiceness, because you're not gonna logically get to know every single person before you judge something about them. And we have been trained to judge people just by the way we exist in this society, this system. So super inaccurate terms. I don't even use the term, and when people use them to me, I tell them I don't use those terms.
What do you recommend for what non-white people do when another person, be they white or non-white, are attempting to talk about this problem and they use words like prejudice and discrimination? What do you recommend non-white people do in response?
Don't give support to those words being valid, and ask questions about what they mean when they're using those words, and state that racism, white supremacy is not prejudiceness, it's not discrimination. It is a global system of white people who are dedicating to mistreating non-white people on the basis of our color because we're not white.
I've heard you talk about the term white privilege, talk about confusing terms. I've heard you talk about the term white privilege before and about how that's a dangerous term for non-white people to be using. Why is the term white privilege a dangerous term to be using when we're talking about racism, white supremacy?
It's another racist euphemism. It's another euphemism. It doesn't give the correct information about what is taking place. You know, it's not a privilege for a white person to always have more comfort and more access and more power than a non-white person 24/7, no matter where they are on planet Earth. That's not a privilege. That's power. You know,
hey, 05, but
yeah.
non-white people would say to you that in this racist system, wherever white people do receive privileges and benefits. Why shouldn't we be talking about that, about the privileges and benefits that they get?
I would say, how is that? Okay, I would say sometimes I get the same privileges. Like sometimes I am allowed to, you know, travel. Sometimes I'm allowed to, you know, be comfortable. Sometimes I'm allowed access. And sometimes I'm allowed into situations where I feel powerful. But that doesn't mean that I have that. It's not real for me like it is for white people. So I may have some access and so-called privilege, but it would never be power. But when white people have those things, it's not privilege, it's power. But what I learned speaking to non-white people about these sorts of things is that it's best to not attempt to get them to change their thought, speech, and behavior. Just you present, and you be a display of the correct use of words and codification, and hopefully that will motivate them to, or maybe help them to one day attempt to be codified. Because in this business of counter-racism, I've seen a lot of non-white people are not interested in solving their race problem. Yeah, it's just not in our brain computers. We don't think it's something we should be doing, even if helping by solving the race problem could be as simple as changing your use of words.
Fully agree. And in terms of talking to other non-white people about this subject, this problem, racism, white supremacy, what kind of advice do you give to non-white people to stay away from arguments? Like if they find something's happening like that, we're talking about we're talking about this problem, and then I'm sure you've seen it, I've seen it, a lot of us have seen it, where non-white people get into arguments. What sort of advice could you give to non-white people as to how we can best guard against arguments with other non-white people in a system of racism, white supremacy?
Yeah, it took me a long time to get out of that urge to have to get my word in, to give, to avoid that back and forth. So I would say stress is the number one killer of non-white people. Well, white supremacy racism is, and then number two is probably stress. And a lot of our stress comes from us being in conflict, whether it's conflict with the system or in conflict with other Black people, other non-white people. And arguments are definitely one of those stressors. So I, speaking for myself, I only make, if I see something, I may just make one statement. When one codified statement may be a question, or just maybe a statement, and that's it. But I don't argue or debate with folks anymore. I used to use a lot of my time and energy going back and forth with people on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, but it's not worth it. You know, non-white people who are classified as Black, we have been sabotaged and conditioned to be very, 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 very just interesting bunch of people, and we shouldn't spend our time and energy dealing with us if we're not doing so constructively.
So you see it as non-constructive for non-white people to argue while speaking about racism, white supremacy, even if we disagree with each other.
100%. 100%. Like yesterday, when we were in that call, it was hard at first because we were hearing a lot of incorrect. No, I'm not gonna say incorrect. We're hearing a lot of illogical information that was not true and did not make any sense. But it was hard for us to maintain ourselves and not want to correct them at every instance. But that's where codification comes in. Codification in the form of V.G.Q. We did not want to argue when discussing the race problem. We only want information that's going to allow us to solve the race problem, think in direction that's going to help us to solve the race problem. That's it. And we're not here to debate or shouting contest or who could put the best combination of words together, you know.
What does the term sellout or coon mean to you? And what do you think about those terms and how they're used and when people use it?
To me, they're just incorrect terms that we on a long list of terms we should not be using. But being in this business and being on social media as well, I see this sellout coons being tossed out all the time, and it's non-constructive, and it's a way to mistreat other Black people while probably pretending that you are so-called pro-Black or so-called trying to help Black people do something positive. I don't know how that's possible if we're calling other Black people coons and sellouts. You know, we all been sold into the system of white supremacy.
Would that be considered name calling? And is name calling generally non-constructive or just completely non-constructive whilst discussing this problem?
Yeah, 100%. Definitely name calling, definitely mistreating, definitely helps white supremacy racism more than it helps to produce justice.
Okay, excellent answers to those questions. As at this point, has anyone else, Helen B, Ash, etc., anyone else got any questions for 05? Take it away.
Yes, I do. Hello, 05. How are you?
I'm maintaining and still learning. How are you?
Maintaining as well and balanced. So my first question for you is, how many books have you read this year?
Read from beginning to end or just read?
Finished to completion, sir.
Oh, 0 of 2022, 0.
Okay. Can you explain the code in under 3 minutes?
Yeah, the code is a way of getting things done that need done without producing more problems. And it's something that works. And when speaking of a code against racism, it's using one's thought, speech, and behavior to counter racism and white supremacy, with the ultimate goal of producing a system of justice. Fragments of the code can be found in the 10 stops and the ISIS papers. But the best place to find it is one making it themselves, and from the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept book by Neely Fuller Jr.
Do you agree or disagree that non-white people, Black people, can't be racist white supremacists?
Yeah, I disagree that they can be racist white supremacists, of course.
And why is that?
Because in order to be a racist white supremacist, a person has to be classified as white, and Black people who are classified as Black are classified as Black.
Which do you think are confused about racism and white supremacy? White people or non-white people?
Non-white people. And if there's a hierarchy of who's confused the most, from being the most confused, it would start as being Blacks being the most, and then it will probably go down the line from there, with yellow being the least confused.
What kind of music do you listen to?
So I listen to all kinds of music, but it is only music when I'm listening to it. Like for example, I can listen to a song that a person could view as non-constructive, but I could be using that song to work out, so that noise becomes music to me, and so that could be rap, for example. Does that make sense, or should I try to explain it again?
No, that makes sense. Is it a choice to practice racism, white supremacy?
I believe so. I believe so, but I could be incorrect, and it could be some sort of cosmic duty for white people.
I got that question from Dr. Q. You could check out his YouTube channel. His name is Dr. Q. That's for people out there. Are you a teacher, a student, or still learning?
I would say that's an excellent question, and I would say I am still learning.
How do albinos fit in the system of racism, white supremacy? How do they fit in this? What's their place?
I think that they are either white or non-white, and they either function as white or non-white. That's my answer.
Okay. And what did you eat today?
Excellent question again. I had a smoothie that contained arugula, a ton of greens like kale, spinach, and more greens that I don't know the names of. And it also had blackberries, dragon fruit, grapes, pineapples, and mangoes, and oat milk, and sesame seeds, and hemp seeds, and flax seeds, and ginger. And I did also have brown eggs and a little bit of turkey sausage, because I do eat meat every now and then.
Do you agree on questioning white people?
Yeah, not only do I agree on it, I support it, I encourage it, and I applaud all non-white people who have the courage to do such things.
Is it correct to say that you are a victim of racism, white supremacy?
Yes.
What do you mean when you call yourself a victim of racism, white supremacy?
It means that I am treated on the basis of my color, and because I am a person classified as Black, it means I don't get the best treatment. My mistreatment started when I was conceived by a person classified as Black, a so-called Black mother. And while in that womb, my victimization began because she was forced to exist in incorrect conditions. And so yeah, that's why I'm a victim, because the moment I was conceived, I was mistreated and abused by the system.
Another excellent question that I got from Dr. CRWS podcast, YouTube channel. Who do you think started the idea that all white people are racist? White people or non-white people?
I don't know. I don't know. That's an excellent question. But I would suspect it was probably white people.
Very interesting. You said you didn't complete any books this year. Do you have a top favorites when it comes to books?
Oh yes. I'm not gonna list them in like order. I'm just gonna list them. But the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Neely Fuller Jr. is right up there. And then there's the ISIS Papers and Program to Kill, and then Pieces of a Puzzle and Race Code War and Of Water and Spirit. And I don't know if I mentioned this one, but this will be the last one I mentioned. The Body Keeps the Score. I have a ton of other books in my my library, but those are the ones that I have. When I read, I am very enthralled by them.
Another excellent question that I got from Dr. CRWS YouTube. Is a person a racist at the time that they are not practicing racism?
But I don't know. Is a person a racist at the time they're not practicing racism?
Correct. Like when you're going to the bathroom, taking a shower.
Are they still allowing them? Yes, because they're probably still allowing themselves to exist in a system of white supremacy without ending the system before going to the bathroom or before taking care of that. Or before they went to bed that night, they could have ended racism, and then they could have woke up and went to the bathroom without being a suspected racist or racist.
Okay. Do you think there's levels to racism?
I don't see it as levels. I see the race war as the race war. I see just how in wars there are different units, and different units have different roles and different value per se, but they still have the necessary value of being supporting of the war effort. So white people, they're the business units of white people who go about shaking hands and acquiring new institutes and land masses to support white supremacy in that manner. And there are units of white people who go out amongst non-white people and pretend to be their friends and invite them to do music videos with them, and they practice racism, white supremacy in that manner. And there are units of white people who hang out outside of grocery stores and call themselves homeless and do drugs with non-white people, and they practice racism in that way. They're different units, just how there's like a paratrooper, there's a grenadier, and there's a rifleman, and on the battlefield. That's how I view this war. I hope that made sense.
Yes, it does, sir. What did your victim parents teach you about racism, white supremacy? Either directly or indirectly.
But indirectly, I was taught that I'm owed something, because I remember my victim mother one day, she told me that when I was like a young teenager, she told me that I act like someone owes me something. I act like the world owes me something. And then as I became less confused, I realized that I am owed something, as is every non-white person, probably every person existing is, and we're all owed justice. We're all owed being able to exist in a system where we're not mistreated and we get constructive help.
Good answer. Can can you talk about mental health and the effects of racism, white supremacy?
I think mental health was how I got into this business, because my mental health was my so-called mental health was even worse. I was even more insane, because how I got into this business is because I was looking for the truth. I've always been a person where I want to know the truth. I want to know what's going on, and I was so brain trashed that I thought everything was just random. And then I just did some research, and then my research led me to start to believe that the planet is ran by reptilians. And I used to think, okay, I used to tell people, do you know about the reptilians? The reptilians are what are why everything's so messed up. They eat people, right? Reptilians eat people, right? And yeah, I have fun with it, but I really believe that, lizard creatures had something to do with why this planet was so incorrect. And but my care mate, she noticed, and she saw how insane I was becoming, how even more insane I was becoming, and she directed me to the cows, concepts of white supremacy. Then I discovered that the electable Negro. But yeah, how I got started on this in this business of racism, of counter racism, attempting to counter racism, was I decided that, hey, I want to end all trauma for Black people. And I made a decision in college, because I learned I learned about my own trauma, and I realized that, hey, I suspect every Black person is super, super traumatized. So I made a decision to end all trauma, and in my searching to discover what's causing all the trauma, it led me to discover reptilians and eventually racism and white supremacy.
Can you explain brain trash for those who don't understand that vocabulary, who don't have that vocabulary?
Yeah, so I use the word brain trashed, retarded, brainwashed. I use it all as like synonyms. They all mean the same thing to me. It's like I'm not the system has deliberately made it so I am not as smart as I should be. I don't know how to think as well as I should be able to. I have been fed and led to believe things that are not true about reality. I have been led to believe things that are not true about myself and people who look like me, and people who are white. So my mind, my mind is not what it should be. It has been sabotaged. So when I say brain trash, I'm talking about all the damage that has been done to my thinking capabilities and my being.
Thank you for that. What's your definition of respect?
Oh, refusing to lie to oneself. Simple as that.
What's your definition for Black self-respect?
Is a person classified as Black who is not only refusing to lie to themselves, but they're actively attempting to counter racism and reach universal man or woman.
Would you agree that non-white people might confuse respect with courtesy?
Yes, I see that often.
And why do you think that happens?
Because we have been trained and conditioned to think that being nice or courteous to a person is showing respect, and we have been fed this concept of respect as people listening to you, or being nice to you. And we've been fed this concept in area 3, entertainment, area 2, education, on the schoolyard, politics, and all that nonsense. So that's why I think that is.
Okay. Top 5 suggestions for non-white people and white people, what they can do to help dismantle, combat the system of racism, white supremacy.
All right. I'll start with who should I start with first? Who would you like me to start with first?
White people.
Okay, for white people, the top is to stop lying to. This is not in any particular order. All of these are insanely important into solving the race problem. But stop lying to non-white people in regards to that racism and white supremacy is not real and global. Number 2, stop engaging in sexual activities with non-white people until the system of white supremacy has been eliminated and replaced with a system of justice. Number 3, stop adopting non-white children. Number 4 would be to stop allowing white people to imprison large numbers of Black males and stop allowing them to warehouse Black males, and to the degree that they do. And number 5 would be to teach your offspring, your white children, to counter racism, to not be like yourself, to teach your little baby, your children, all your children, to eliminate racism and white supremacy. And for non-white people, begin to learn about racism and white supremacy, and that should lead you to number 2, where you're able to use the correct terms when discussing racism, white supremacy, and you using the correct terms and understanding racism and white supremacy. I guess number 3 can be understanding racism and white supremacy, what it is and how it works. And then number 4 can be promoting and participating in no conflict with other non-white people. And number 5 would be to be serious about serious things and to no longer be serious about silly things, to stop having so much fun, stop celebrating so much, stop partying so much, stop laughing so much, and spend some way more time attempting to be constructive and going back to number 1, learning about and reading about racism and white supremacy, listening to lectures. If you don't like reading, you hate reading, because I didn't start reading until I discovered racism. So I only read to learn about racism and white supremacy. So if you don't like reading, you listen to some lectures. There's tons of Almason Wilson, Dr. Francis Wilson, Neely Fuller Jr., Dr. Maria Balani. There's so many, Dr. DeGroy, the cows, concepts of white supremacy. There's so much information out there that could help us to improve our codification that doesn't require reading. So that's what I would suggest to white people and to non-white people.
Also a suggestion, listen to Audible. And when you're listening to the lectures and Audible books, you could, go shopping, you could exercise, you could still, clean the house, cook, all those things. Just a suggestion. How many non-white Black teachers did you have in school when you was in school?
You said how many non-white
Black teachers? How many Black teachers?
Okay, I heard you. So let me go from K through 12. I had 2 in my K through 12 education, and I had 2 in my so-called higher education at college.
Okay. How did your victim parents discipline you?
I was spanked, but it wasn't to the degree where I've heard other victims report, but it still wasn't that constructive. It could have been handled more constructively without that kind of abuse. But yeah, I was spanked. I was like punished with my material things being taken away or being placed on punishment, meaning I couldn't like leave the house or have access to my things, the things I like doing for entertainment. Yeah, but I was never like I was always spanked on my bottom. I was never like hit in the face, like slapped across the face by my victim mother or stuff like that. It was always like a corporal punishment. Like we had like I had like a stick that was used for some of my spankings, or was sometimes just a hand.
Okay. Can you share a few experiences of racism, white supremacy on the job?
On the job. Oh man. I think
One.
Yeah, okay, so I used to work this was way back, but it just shows how confused I was because it was so in my face. It was so in my face, but I didn't get it until many years later. But there was I used to work at a movie theater, and there was this suspected racist named Tom there, and he got hired. He was pretty fresh in. But as soon as the time for management, assistant managers were being hired, he was the first one to get the position when there were so many floor workers who had been there for years, who were of course more deserving than that to get that position. But so the injury, all the white managers and assistant managers, they would all hang out together, and then it was reported to us that they would make jokes about one another, and then it was reported that one of them made a joke about me and said that I look like the kind of person who has bodies under the floorboards. This is when I was like probably like 23, somewhere around there, maybe 22. But yeah, I also worked in a school, and I'm not really seeing a lot of white people, but what's happening at the school and how the students are behaving it's all the effects of racism and white supremacy.
I noticed that you've watched a few movies and TV shows. How are you able to decode these movies and TV shows?
Oh, it's just looking for the symbolism. Just looking for the symbolism. Like, for example, I may be doing a decoding with Sarah for Dexter season 9, but I just look for I just take what I've learned, just what do colors mean in the system of white supremacy, and I apply it to what I'm seeing on screen. Like, for example, Dexter, there's a lot of coded messages in that show, and just the whole aspect of a white killer and their son, and they have a code. Like, Dexter has a code, and that's what non-white people need a code. But anyways, there's a part in Dexter season 9 where a white buck is killed, and it has a lot of significance. And if you are just an average person, you don't really understand white supremacy racism, a white buck being killed doesn't mean anything. But because I'm aware of the system, I understand that deers are killed all the time. But because it's a white buck, it produces a lot of conflict within that show because, you know, white bucks are supposed to be so-called sacred and the show's lore. So yeah, I just pay attention to what I'm looking at. Before I had the concept of white supremacy in my brain computer, I was just looking at, you know, how well done is the scene, how good is the acting, you know, like how much am I enjoying the content. But now I'm actually paying attention to what am I seeing, what are the characters saying, and what does it all mean? You know, I watch movies totally, I consume information totally different now, being less confused.
How were you able to avoid or block the programming from racist man and racist woman under the system?
I don't know if I am blocking it. I would just say I'm decoding it and or understanding it. Like for example, if I'm presented with an image of a so-called attractive female, white female, and a black male in the bedroom on the TV screen, you know, I'm not gonna go out and try to find myself a white female. That could be how I'm blocking the programming. I'm just understanding, you know, it. For a long time I wasn't countering the programming. Area 3 totally brain trashed and retarded me to the point where I really thought killing and harming people, I really didn't think too much of it. I didn't mind it. I thought it was fun. I couldn't name any black scholars, but I could name Patrick Bateman, you know, Tyler Durden, Ted Kaczynski. I can name a bunch of white killers, but I cannot name Malcolm X, you know, Marcus Garvey, you know, Dr. Francis Olsen. I cannot name any black scholars. So not blocking it in the past has led to me having to correct a lot of damage.
Do you speak any other language besides English?
No.
What podcasts are you listening to now?
I listen to the context of white supremacy. I listen to the Produced Justice show on Tuesdays at 6 a.m. PST. And I, other than that, other podcasts I listen to are kind of probably about, you know, about true crime, about white killers and white people behaving incorrectly. So I guess I didn't really want to give any white people shout outs, but I guess to answer the question, I would say This Is Monsters is a podcast I listen to, at least a YouTube channel. Yeah, this Is Monsters is one I think is constructive. Not because it teaches about racism, but it just gives me white people that I could do my own broadcast on and tell the truth about them.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have, all the questions that I have for now. I might come back later. Anybody else with questions?
Thank you.
Can I be heard? I had one question. Greetings, 0526 and the panel. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this interview. Very briefly, could you describe maybe some racist propaganda you've seen or you've been witnessing of late?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess the most disturbing racist propaganda I've seen lately is on the show The Dexter, because this is my first time watching the show with codification. Like I understand what a code is, and I keep hearing Dexter talk about a code. You know, he always talk about the code and how he needs the code to be successful. And currently the show is about him and his son. His son is now like helping him to be a killer. His son is also looking like he's going to be a serial killer like Dexter. So Dexter has a code, and if you understand Neely Fuller's understanding of a code is something that works. Dexter has a code that teaches him how to be a deceitful mass murderer. So I think that show is giving is spreading a lot of coded messages to white people to, hey, you know, stay refined, you know, stay deceitful, stay very smart, you know, and keep your code ready, stay on code. And it's at the same time it's sending messages to non-white people to be attracted to white psychopaths who like Dexter, because he on that show he is with a non-white red female, so-called Native American. So it's really powerful. It's really powerful. And next to that, I have to mention Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, because it's just so grotesque. There's a Black female who it's implied she wants to sexually engage with a alien creature who is also a old white man played by Woody Harrelson. So I thought that was really powerful stuff.
Thank you. My next question is, can you talk a little bit about how attempting to practice racism has affected your relationships with other people and how you relate to them?
How attempting to practice counter-racism?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, I've become super independent. I don't have any people that I would call friends. I don't have any people that I would call family. Honestly, I'm just an individual now. I have a it's completely severed them, because I don't I thought I had friends, I thought I had families, I thought I could hang out with my friends and family, I thought I could spend quality time with my friends and family. But that's impossible, because I am a prisoner of war. I'm a victim of racism. I am not allowed to have a family or a friend. So yeah, it has completely severed them and erased them.
Thank you. My next question is, is there a specific moment that maybe a specific event or moment where you realized attempting to practice counter-racism where let me try and rephrase that. Can you describe a specific moment when you realized you should start practicing counter-racism?
Oh yeah, the moment I discovered it, I mean, I came across it, the moment it presented itself to me, I didn't need to think much about it, because I spent most of my existence just being so silly and so stupid and so confused, that once I saw the logic, it made complete sense to me. And I've always wondered why, you know, I always wondered why things were like this. I just thought it was random, as I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, but it's not random, it's by deliberate design.
Okay, thank you. Under System of Racism, White Supremacy, who should non-white people be focused on?
Non-white people should be focused on white people 24/7. They should go to bed thinking about white people and wake up thinking about white people and what they're up to, and how they can get them to produce justice.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the questions that I have. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone else? Go
I
right
have a
ahead.
I have a question. How do you think that white supremacists give signals to Black? What are the different signals that white supremacists give to Black males versus Black females, and how do you think it affects their ability or lack of ability to produce justice?
So I think, well, Black males are dealt with either with just immense direct aggression and violence, or just really refined racism in a form of deception. So, but yeah, I don't know if I could answer that question besides what I just said, because I'm pretty sure it differs. I'm pretty sure white men have a, did you say white men or white people?
I said, what are the signals that white supremacists give to Black males versus Black females? And how do you think that it affects their ability or lack of ability to produce justice?
Okay, I think from my decoding and from what I suspect is going on, I think we get signals saying that, hey, Black male, I think we get mocking symbols. Like we will turn on the TV or turn on the music, and we will always hear Black people being mistreated or degraded. Like, hey, black bitches are shooting niggas, or turn on the TV screen, you see this beautiful Black female being raped by a white man in the bedroom with a white man. And those mocking symbols are saying, haha, look, Black male, you don't have your counterpart in the form of the Black female. You don't have any sort of unity or cohesion with your fellow Black males. Y'all out shooting each other. So it's just mocking symbols. And when a Black male sees that, they're probably too confused to counter it. So they're probably participating in it themselves, or they see that and they the self-hate is increased, and they end up with a non-Black female, or they end up just a confused Black person who is not attempting to counter racism, but is supporting racism in some way, shape, or form.
Thank you. That's my only question.
Any other questions from anyone else? Just jump in.
I got another one. Should Black people or people classified as whites, should non-white people be limiting their contact with white people? And could you explain your answer as well?
I'm gonna say no, because we should attempt to get constructive information from white people. If you can get constructive information from them, no. If you can't get constructive information from them and they only want you around to have fun with you or to be your so-called friend, then yes. But if you can get constructive help from them, information from them, then yes. But if they just are having you around as their friend, which should be decoding as their pet, then yes.
I got a quick question actually. in a system of racism, white supremacy, you have non-white people, especially black males, being conditioned to use our bodies and not our brains.
I'm gonna say 100%. That's correct. I think that's probably why I've always had a disdain for dancing in most sports, because something in my brain computer saw just Black people being encouraged to play sports or dance my entire existence, play sports or dance. I should play football, or my victim unit telling me, waking me up to go in the living room and dance with somebody or for people. So yeah, that I think that's true, and I've seen many tragic examples of that being true.
I've certainly talked about celebrating quite a few times. You talked about it a few times. Could you just talk about non-white people are are seemingly kind of obsessive, our obsession with celebrating in this system of racism, white supremacy. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's very tragic and disturbing that and probably and display and a cry for help to how miserable we are, and how much suffering we are, and because we look for any opportunity to come together and just forget and just consume party treats, food, whatever is consumed at parties. Mostly, a lot of it, all the time, is alcohol and sweets and fumes, smoke fumes. So I think we just want to escape. We are just so miserable that we look for those opportunities to come together and pretend like we're a family, and we don't have all these so-called skeletons in the closet, and we don't have all this conflict going on in this victim unit. And yeah, it's or because I'm not what I'm saying, I'm only like it's 50-50, and the other half is right here. Or we have just we're not miserable. We have just been conditioned to be that silly and that stupid that we really just want to have fun. We look for any opportunity to have fun, and the best time to have fun is when we're celebrating these holidays, celebrating these bringing in new slaves to planet Earth. Okay, what kind of slave am I gonna bring in? Is it a boy? Is it a girl slave, or is it a boy slave? Let's have a slave reveal party where I'm gonna pop some smoke and it's gonna be pink or purple. I mean, pink or blue. So yeah, it's getting, yeah. I don't know if we just want to have fun or or cry for help. But I know it should stop. And
yep, celebrating whilst on a battlefield is definitely non-constructive, in my opinion, as well. And a lot of times when we hear some non-white people talking about racism, white supremacy, a lot of confusion is displayed in terms of, we usually hear phrases like, we need to come together, etc. And the code, Neely Fuller Jr.'s code, talks about being united but independent. Can you explain the difference for some non-white people who might be listening? What's the difference between being united but independent versus we need to come together, etc., to do something about racism?
yeah, coming together is Black people thinking they're gonna huddle up and slam dunk racism away by doing something together. Whereas being united independent, we are united around a code designed to counter racism. And it is believed that by being united around this code, if enough of us are united around this code, we can solve the race problem, or at least eliminate it, which is my goal. So united independent is is what we should change our mentality to.
Another bit of confusion sometimes I hear when we're talking about non-white people talking about racism, we start talking about capitalism, or we start talking about an Illuminati, etc. If there is such a thing as an Illuminati or capitalism, etc., do you suspect that these things are run by people classified as white?
Oh, certainly. Even when I was super sick with more insanity, the reptilians are white. They're white reptilians. So no matter what boogeyman we want to blame on all the world's problem, whoever behind that boogeyman is like Scooby-Doo. You take off the mask, it's gonna be a white person, a racist white supremacist, to be more precise.
Great. Has anyone else got any more questions at this point? Okay, just checking. I'll just get another question whilst everyone else gets ready. If white people are not going to stop practicing racism, what should non-white people do?
If white people are not going to start practicing racism, I think non-white people should still be codified and keep begging and keep asking them to eliminate racism. But we should also probably spend more time and energy in Area 9 counter war, looking at some of some suggestions there that we can think about.
How do you see, I think you covered some of this already, but I'll just ask this. How do you see the system of racism, white supremacy being maintained in so-called entertainment? Can you list some of the things that non-white people should be aware of when, viewing TV, movies, etc., etc.? What are some of the things that some non-white people should be aware of how racist man and racist woman are trying to maintain that system in regards to entertainment?
Yeah, it's the words. Words are huge, hugely important to how the system is maintained. And TV, movies, music, what do they all have in common? They use a lot of words. I saw the new Spider-Man. Dark being used as a negative was in that movie. At least I remember it at least 2 times. I'm pretty sure it's probably in there more. But all films are going to use like words incorrectly, and that's going to get into the audience's brain computer, and then they're going to be using the same words incorrectly. And that is how, and also the concepts that are presented in movies and music is racist logic. I largely believe that it's racist logic or counter-racist logic, and we have all been trained to use racist logic. So when you're watching Spider-Man, when you're watching Thor, when you're watching anything, any film that you've been allowed to see, it's probably operating on racist logic. And so we're taught racist logic, and we practice racist logic, at least racist thinking. And that, I think that's how it works, because when you look at rap, we have a ton of slang combined in these songs. But when you decode it, it just means Black people killing Black people. And when you look at the effects of it, it means Black people killing Black people. Not the ones who are rapping about it, but the ones who hear it, the young ones who hear it, they will, in large numbers, go out and practice racist logic in a form of killing each other. That was a pretty long-winded answer, but did that make sense, Mr. Damages?
That did make perfect sense. Yeah. And I'm through with my questions, actually. So if there's anyone else that's got any more questions, or if there's any questions on the chat, is anyone asking any questions?
All right, I have some more questions here, if that's okay.
Please.
Go ahead.
So my first question, thank you again. Do you have any book recommendations by a white author?
Yes, I do. It would be Program to Kill by David McGowan.
Okay. Is that the only one?
And another one would be The Body Keeps the Score. The author name escapes me right now, but it's a pretty popular, easy to find book. The Body Keeps the Score. Have a couple of studies on that on our channel as well.
Okay. Do you know any people classified as white who may not practice racism, white supremacy?
I know white people, but I do not know any white people who may not be practicing racism.
Okay. Are there any non-constructive activities you struggle with?
Oh, yes, of course.
Oh, can you do you mind sharing any, or yourself?
Yeah, I guess I struggle with some of how I spend my time and energy in regards to Area 3 entertainment.
Okay. Do you believe, thank you for sharing, do you believe justice can be established?
Oh yeah, I actually think the path, the solution, the road to justice, I think is quite simple. It's just that racist men and racist women have done a phenomenal job at sabotaging, retarding, and brain trashing the entire planet. That it's been very, very, very difficult to traverse that road to justice.
Thank you. And my last one is, what do you think is the largest problem with Black male/female relationships? So-called.
I think the fact that we have Black males and Black females operating with a racist logic, and that means that they are attempting to be like white people. They're expecting the Black male to function like a white man can function, and they're expecting the Black female to function like a white woman can function, which is never gonna be the case. Never gonna be able to provide the same material comfort that white people can. Only if we're except when we're allowing those really, really rare Jay-Z instances, and even those in those scenarios, things are still not where they should be. Case in point, Jay-Z getting beat in an elevator with his care mate standing right by him. So I think it's we don't have counter-racist logic, nor do we have any sort of logic that would put our position and our condition into context, because we have what I've noticed is that we have a bunch of well-dressed and attractive-looking Black people, but they are still victims. We are well-dressed, victims, and we may be comfortable, but we still don't have the things we need to exist constructively with each other, nor will we in this system, and nor will we ever even get close to without having understanding of racism and white supremacy in our brain computer, which most Black couples do not have, I am certain.
Thank you.
I will just ask another question, actually. In terms of the whole thing with white saviors, like white savior complex, when a lot of non-white, are there some standout or popular white people that are claiming to counter racism that you think are confusing some non-white people that we should be cautious of or aware of?
Oh, I'm sure there's a bunch. I'm sure there's thousands at this point. That's how refinement looks.
Can
Especially
you list a few off the top of your head?
Jolly, I don't, because they are existing and taking they use Instagram and TikTok, and I don't watch them. I just know they're out there. But there's a guy, Jolly something, Jolly whatever.
Jolly Ginger, I think. Jolly Good Ginger, I think he calls himself or something.
Yeah, Jolly Good Ginger. He's one of the new ones. Maybe Greta Thunberg. She may be, even though she's like a eco activist, she still could be, and also a so-called child. She also could be suspect. She's a suspect racist in my book. Yeah, my best thing I can say to that is whenever you're a non-white person is scrolling or comes into contact with a white person who is talking about racism or something racist that happened, and the conversation and what they're saying ends without the system of justice being produced or being mentioned of needing to be produced, then you just suspect that person was not is a suspected racist, probably practicing racist, attempting to make you like them or believe that they are not a racist. But yeah, because it's
Do you usually hear some people who are classified as white talking about racism, white supremacy, without talking about punishing white people who practice racism?
Can you repeat the question?
Have you ever heard, or do you ever hear people who are classified as white talking about racism, white supremacy, or talking about racism in general without talking about punishing white people who practice racism?
Oh yeah, I think whenever whenever I hear about racism, it's racism is being celebrated or excused in some way, shape, or form. Rarely is it being criticized.
Yeah, that's what I seem to hear as well. Why do you suspect that they're not talking about punishing the people who practice racism, even the white people who are talking about racism and how bad it is?
Oh, because racism is what a white person is supposed to be able to do. A white person can't practice racism, then why the hell do they need this system? Would they want the system? So I think the usual suspects, they have to play really close attention to how they report on overt racist actions, because they don't want to make white people think that the system is becoming weaker by criticizing racism, but they will sacrifice white people every now and then, as we've seen happening lately.
Do you think that white people practice racism for different reasons?
Yep, I think they have different reasons. Like they have they get different things out of it. Like one person may feel good being able to like go amongst Black people and talk to them and have them believe that they're friends, and that may make them feel like really conniving, and that may make them feel good. Or they may feel good being able to travel from landmass to landmass, paying non-white people for sex. That may make them feel powerful, and that may give them great physical pleasure. Or they may practice it because they think their the way their skin is means that they should practice it. But yeah, the goal, like why they practice it, I think it's it's also tied to with the with wanting to maintain it and keep it going, because doing the things I mentioned is helping to keep it going, I suspect.
In terms of viewing white people as racist suspects, do you think it's constructive for non-white people to think of people like, let's say like Dylan Roof or Carl Rittenhouse, look at them differently to how we look at someone, say, I don't know, off the top of my head, I don't know, Steven Spielberg, Jeff Bezos, et cetera, or a judge, presiding over a case, etc. Do you think it's helpful for non-white people to look at these different types of white people in terms of what job they have, etc.? Do you think it's constructive for us to look at these white people as different, like powerful, less powerful, etc.?
Oh yeah, I think I don't know if I would say less powerful are more powerful, but the likes of Steven Spielberg and Jeff Bezos, these are super powerful suspected racists. I think they are the kind of the suspected racists that we should be even more suspicious of compared to the Dylan Roof types, to the ones who kind of make it known that they are a racist white supremacist. But there were likes of like Steven Spielberg, the Elon Musk. Those suspected racists are very, very dangerous because they have millions upon millions of non-white people listening to them, and that can cause a lot of confusion, and that can do a lot to not produce justice.
Okay, any other questions? Because I'm definitely through with my questions now. I know I keep saying that, but I'm definitely few more questions.
I have one. This may be the last one. Do you think non-white people should watch the news or consume media in regards to current affairs?
I think it's a hard question to answer because I watch my victim unit watch the news, routinely, and still be very confused about race and white supremacy. So I yes, it's important to be aware of what's happening on planet Earth, but if you don't understand race and white supremacy, the things we are consuming on the news, it's not going to do much for us, because we have to be able to not only watch the news, but to decode it. And if you're not going to be able to decode it if you don't understand racism.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. That was my last question.
I don't have any more. Mr. Tellen B, I don't have any more questions.
Okay, I see Evolutionists for Justice is in the chat as well, and Produce Results. Do you guys have any questions?
One question I have. What was the reaction when you told the first white female that you wouldn't no longer have sex with them? What was their reaction?
No white woman have approached me for that since becoming less confused.
Did you notice that they're only attracted to someone with a very foolish, childish mind?
That makes a lot of sense.
You think maybe that's why they have not attempted to try to get you in the bedroom anymore? You're no longer attractive?
I think that could be the case, combined with just me not being in areas like clubs or parties or social gatherings where those interactions take place.
Quality decision. That's it.
Yeah, I don't. There are no chats from no questions. I mean, from the chat, but I do appreciate the audience. There are folks here, but no questions, which is totally fine.
Okay, well, that's great. I think that has been excellent. And thanks for agreeing to do the interview as well. Still learning how to interview people myself. So thanks for agreeing to answer the questions. I think you did a great job answering the questions as well. And yeah, I think we can go ahead and wrap things up.
Yeah, thank you. It was definitely a blast to use some insane words. A blast between, because of System of White Supremacy, things that are fun explode, So yeah, it's definitely been a blast. It's been very constructive. I appreciate being asked to, and I hope my the words I shared here were of value, some value to the folks who were listening and the folks who may listen in the future who come across this broadcast.
Okay, so just before we go, just let some non-white people who are listening know where they can find you, know what you're doing on in terms of social media, etc.
Oh yeah, you should go to CRWS on YouTube. Type in CRWS. Go to the About page. You can find all of our social media. There's more content to come. Want to eventually get into decoding white killers and talking about all sorts of things on the channel. But please check out our channel. Go to the playlist. Please also check out Smoking Damages Instagram and YouTube channel. And please, as I beg all non-white people, go to producejustice.com, order a copy of the code book so we can gather that effective number of non-white people who will solve the race problem.
The tipping point.
Elaborate on that, Evolutionists for Justice.
There's a book called The Tipping Point by a black male, but warning, he has a white parent. And he talks about there's a natural law in the universe that among people, when certain ideals spread to a certain demographic, a number, or in a certain area, then it has its way of making its way across the entirety of a population. So we just need enough to get to the tipping point. Reason and logic says that white people have to learn white supremacy. So non-white people have to learn to counter it. And after only a certain number of us, it's over.
I agree. We have to get to the effective number in order to counter this problem. That's true. Yeah, okay, so I think we can wrap things up. This This is Smoking Damages for Reviews RM, and yeah, I think we'll see you. I think we've got the decoding. Well, we've got the book study on Kahari and Haro's Race Code War. That's on Sunday, GMT 7 o'clock. I can't remember exactly what it is for PST, but that'll be on Sunday. And yeah, that's CRWS signing out.
Peace.